The sound of metal grinding against metal echoes through the darkness. Inside the belly of the beast, Captain James McKenna can taste copper and diesel fuel. His hands, calloused and scarred from 20 years of hard living, rest against cold steel that vibrates with each labored breath of the dying engine. It is 2 in the morning on June 24th, 1941, and somewhere in the Lithuanian darkness, the Wehrmacht is coming. But that story begins 18 months earlier, in a place McKenna thought he would never leave. A place that broke him long before any war could. New York City, September 1939. The rain falls like it has something to prove, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon and broken dreams. McKenna sits in a bar that smells of stale beer and yesterday's regrets. He is 38 years old but looks 50. The drink does that to a man. So does the guilt. The bartender, a thick-armed man with sympathetic eyes, slides another whiskey across the scarred wood. He does not ask if McKenna wants it. Men like McKenna always want it. At the corner table, two veterans argue about the war in Europe. Hitler this, Poland that. McKenna does not care. He fought his war 21 years ago in France. In the mud and blood of the Meuse Argonne, he came home to find that the world had moved on without him. His wife Sarah had moved on too. Divorced him in 33. Took their son David with her. The boy is 16 now. McKenna has not seen him in 2 years. Has not been allowed to see him in 2 years. A man in a pressed suit enters the bar, shaking rain from his hat. He scans the room with the practiced eye of someone looking for someone specific. His gaze settles on McKenna. He approaches like a man walking toward a dangerous animal, cautious but determined. "Captain McKenna?" The voice is crisp, professional, New England accent, money. McKenna does not look up from his glass. Not a captain anymore. Just Jim. The man sits anyway, uninvited. He places a business card on the bar. McKenna glances at it through bleary eyes. Robert Hutchinson, senior editor, Popular Mechanics magazine. "I have a proposition for you, Mr. McKenna." "Not interested. You were the finest tank commander in the American Expeditionary Force. Battle of Soissons, 1918. You led 6 Renault tanks through German lines when everyone said it was impossible. You brought 5 of them back." McKenna finally looks at the man, really looks at him. "You did your homework." "I always do." Hutchinson pulls out a folder, opens it. Inside are photographs. Tanks, Soviet tanks, massive, brutal machines that look like they could fight God himself. These are the new KV series heavy tanks. The Soviets are testing them right now. The K1 and something called the K2. We want you to go to Leningrad, document them, write about them. 6 months, $500 a month. McKenna laughs. It is a bitter sound. The Soviets hate Americans. They hate journalists even more. Not true. There are diplomatic relations, cultural exchange programs. The Soviet Union wants to show the world their military might. They will allow an American technical journalist to observe their proving grounds, especially one with your credentials. Hutchinson pauses, especially one who has nothing left to lose. The words hang in the air like gun smoke. McKenna wants to hit this man, wants to tell him to go to hell. Instead, he looks at his own reflection in the mirror behind the bar. A ghost stares back, hollow eyes, unshaven jaw. The uniform he once wore with pride is just a memory now, packed away in a trunk he has not opened in 15 years. Why me? Because you understand tanks the way other men understand their wives. Because you can write. Because you are the only man I know who might actually survive 6 months in Stalin's Russia. Hutchinson slides an envelope across the bar. 3 months advance pay, $1,500. Passage on a cargo ship leaves in 3 days from Brooklyn. Think about it. The man leaves. The envelope stays. McKenna stares at it for a long time. Inside his jacket pocket, folded and refolded 100 times, is a letter from David, or rather a letter from Sarah about David. The boy does not write to his father anymore. "Your son asked me not to tell you this, but I thought you should know. He has been talking about joining the army, lying about his age. I told him no, but he is your son, stubborn, reckless. He says he wants to be a man since you never taught him how." McKenna opens the envelope, counts the money, $1,500, enough to start over, or enough to run away. Maybe they are the same thing. 3 days later, he is on a cargo ship bound for Leningrad, watching New York disappear into the morning fog. He does not know it yet, but he will never see America the same way again. None of them will. The Soviet Union in October 1939 is a study in contradictions. Magnificent buildings casting shadows over starving peasants. Revolutionary posters promising paradise, while the secret police drag men from their beds in the night. McKenna sees it all from the window of a train rattling north toward Leningrad, and he thinks about how every empire tells the same lies in different languages. The proving grounds are 30 kilometers outside the city, surrounded by forests that look like they have never heard of civilization. The KV-2 prototype sits in the center of a muddy field like a cathedral made of steel. It is the most beautiful and terrifying thing McKenna has ever seen. The turret. God, the turret. It rises from the hull like a small building, a massive box housing a 152-millimeter howitzer. The entire structure weighs 12 tons. The center of gravity is so high that McKenna can immediately see the problem. This machine will tip like a drunk on a bicycle if it hits anything steeper than a gentle slope. Impressive, yes? The voice comes from behind him, Russian accent, good English. McKenna turns. The man is about 35, lean and hard, with eyes that have seen things they cannot unsee. He wears a Soviet lieutenant's uniform with a tank corps insignia. His face is handsome in a severe way, like a sculpture that forgot to smile. Lieutenant Nikolai Volkov, I am to be your liaison during your time here, and your translator, though you speak Russian well enough, I am told. Enough to order vodka and ask directions to the bathroom. Volkov does not smile. Those are the two most important phrases in Russia. Come, I will show you the vehicle. They walk toward the KV-2 together. McKenna's trained eye catalogs every detail. The armor is thick, 75 millimeters on the front, maybe more. The tracks are wide, good for snow and mud. The gun, that monstrous 152-millimeter cannon, can probably punch through any fortification ever built. But that turret, that damn turret. What do you think? Volkov asks. McKenna chooses his words carefully. It is powerful. But power does not matter if you cannot use it. That turret makes the vehicle unstable. In combat, on rough terrain, this tank will struggle. Volkov's face remains expressionless, but something flickers in his eyes, recognition maybe, or agreement. You are very observant, Mr. McKenna. I have been around tanks for 20 years, Lieutenant. I know what works and what gets men killed. They stand in silence for a moment, two veterans from different armies, different wars, different worlds. But soldiers understand each other in ways civilians never can. The language of mud and blood and bad decisions is universal. Come, Volkov says finally, I will introduce you to the crew. You will be observing them during training exercises. The crew of KV-2 prototype number 012 stands beside their machine like mismatched parts of a broken engine. McKenna has seen this type before. Every army has them. The men nobody else wants. The troublemakers. The damaged goods. Sergeant Boris Kuznetsov is a bear of a man, 6 feet tall and 240 pounds of muscle and scar tissue. His hands are the size of dinner plates. His face looks like it has argued with several fists and lost. He does not speak, just nods once and turns back to checking the gun breech. Bear spent 5 years in a labor camp, Volkov explains quietly. He was an engineer, accused of sabotage. He was not guilty, but that does not matter. He volunteered for tank duty to reduce his sentence. Corporal Anton Fedorov is smaller, wiry, with quick, nervous movements and eyes that never settle on anything for long. He smokes a cigarette like it is the last one on Earth. McKenna recognizes the look. Shell shock, battle fatigue, whatever they are calling it these days. Anton was a machine gunner in the Winter War against Finland, lost his wife and daughter to Soviet artillery. Friendly fire. Volkov's voice is flat, but there is something underneath. Anger, maybe, or shame. He drives now, says he feels safer inside steel than outside it. Private Mikhail Orlov cannot be more than 19, probably younger. Orphan written all over him in the way he stands too straight, trying too hard to be noticed. He looks at McKenna with something like hope, and it breaks McKenna's heart a little. Misha lost his parents in the purges, Volkov says. He has no family. The tank corps is all he has. Private Dmitry Sokolov is different. He holds a book. Poetry. McKenna recognizes the worn cover. Pushkin. The young man is thin, intellectual, with hands better suited to holding a pen than loading artillery shells. He meets McKenna's eyes and nods with surprising dignity. Dmitri was studying literature at university. Then the draft came. He does not belong here, but then again, none of us do. Volkov introduces McKenna as an American technical journalist who will be observing their training. The crew accepts this with the blank faces of men who have learned not to question anything. Only Misha looks curious. That night, in the barracks that smell of diesel and unwashed men, McKenna writes in his journal by candlelight. He describes the tank in technical detail, the crew in careful, neutral language. He does not write about the feeling that has been growing in his chest since he arrived, the feeling that he is watching men preparing to die in a machine that will kill them before the enemy gets a chance. Days turn into weeks. October becomes November. McKenna watches the crew train, watches them struggle with the turret that jams when the tank tilts more than 10 degrees, watches them reload the massive 152mm shells, two men straining to lift each 48-kilogram projectile, watches Anton flinch at sudden noises, watches Bear work in silence, his massive hands surprisingly gentle on the machinery, watches Misha try too hard to please everyone, watches Dmitri read poetry during breaks, his lips moving soundlessly. Watches Volkov watch all of them with the eyes of a man who knows they are doomed. It happens during a night exercise in late November. McKenna is in the observation post, watching through binoculars as KV-2012 maneuvers through the forest course. The moon is full. The trees cast long shadows like prison bars across the snow. The tank takes a turn too fast. The right track hits a hidden log. The entire vehicle lurches 15 degrees to starboard. The turret, 12 tons of steel and malice, groans like a living thing. Inside, the hydraulic system that allows 360-degree rotation suddenly becomes a cage. The turret freezes, will not move, cannot move. Over the radio, McKenna hears Anton's panicked voice. Turret is jammed. Repeat, jam. Repeat, turret is jammed. Then Bear's calmer tone. Stay still, do not force it. Then Volkov, crisp and commanding. Shut down the traverse system now. McKenna is running before he realizes he has moved. His boots pound through the snow. His breath comes in clouds. He is 38 years old and out of shape, and his knees hurt, and he does not care. Something in his chest, something he thought died in France in 1918, has woken up. He reaches the tank as the crew evacuates. They tumble out of the hatches like men escaping a sinking ship. All except Volkov, who stands on the turret, examining the frozen ring gear with a flashlight. Get down from there, McKenna calls up in Russian. Volkov looks down at him. This is not your concern, American. The hell it is not. That turret is hung up on the bearing race. You try to force it, you will strip the gears completely. And what would you have me do? McKenna thinks. The old knowledge comes back. Muscle memory from 2 decades ago. You need to reverse the tank. Back it up at the same angle it tilted. Take the load off the hydraulics. Then manually center the turret using the hand crank before you straighten out. Volkov stares at him for a long moment. Then he drops down inside the tank. McKenna can hear him giving orders to Anton. The engine roars, the tracks reverse. The tank backs up slowly, carefully, retracing its path. The turret groans again, but this time something gives. The hydraulics hiss. The massive structure shifts. Now, McKenna shouts, hand crank, center it. Inside, he can hear Bear's grunting effort as the big man turns the manual override. The turret creeps clockwise. 1 degree, 2, 5, 10. Enough, Volkov's voice. Straighten out, Anton. The tank levels. The turret settles. The crisis is over. The crew climbs out again, this time more slowly. They look at McKenna with new eyes. Even Bear, who has not spoken more than 10 words since they met, nods once, a gesture of respect. Volkov jumps down from the turret. He stands in front of McKenna, close enough that McKenna can see his breath in the cold air. You are not just a journalist, Volkov says quietly. You are a tanker. McKenna does not deny it. I was, long time ago. Why did you come here, really? It is a good question. McKenna is not sure he knows the answer. Because I had nowhere else to go. Volkov studies him for a moment longer. Then he does something unexpected. He extends his hand. Thank you for your help tonight, Captain McKenna. McKenna takes the hand, shakes it. Just Jim. Then I am just Nikolai. A ghost of a smile crosses the Russian's face. It does not last long. But only when we are alone. In front of the men, I am still Lieutenant Volkov. Understood. They walk back toward the barracks together, the crew trailing behind them. Somewhere in the forest, an owl calls. The sound is lonely and ancient. McKenna thinks about his son, 5,000 miles away, learning to be a man without a father. He thinks about Sarah, who stopped loving him when he could not stop reliving the war. He thinks about the men in the tanks at Soissons, the ones who burned alive when their machines caught fire. He thinks maybe he came to Russia not to run away from his ghosts, but to finally face them. December arrives with snow and darkness. The days are short. The nights are endless. McKenna has been in the Soviet Union for 3 months now, and he is starting to understand things that cannot be written in his articles. Things about the way Volkov's jaw tightens when political officers visit. Things about how the crew never speaks freely until they are sure no one is listening. Things about the fear that lives underneath everything in this country like ice under snow. He is in the maintenance hangar late one night writing notes about the KV-2's transmission problems when he hears voices, angry voices, Russian voices trying to stay quiet but failing. McKenna knows he should leave, mind his own business. But curiosity, that old soldier's instinct for danger, makes him stay. He moves closer to the sound, finds himself near the rear of KV-2012. Volkov is there, alone, working on something inside the turret traverse mechanism, working with purpose, working like a man who does not want to be interrupted. McKenna watches from the shadows, watches Volkov disconnect a hydraulic line, watches him adjust a valve, watches him sabotage his own tank. For a moment, McKenna cannot breathe. Then Volkov turns and their eyes meet. Time stops. Volkov's hand moves toward the pistol at his belt. McKenna raises his hand slowly, showing he is unarmed. They stare at each other across 10 feet of cold air and colder implications. How long have you been there? Volkov's voice is flat, dangerous. Long enough. Then you know what I must do now. You could shoot me, claim I was a spy. No one would question it. Yes. Volkov does not draw the pistol, but his hand stays near it. Why should I not? McKenna chooses his next words carefully. They will either save his life or end it. Because you are not a murderer, Nikolai. You are just a man trying to survive a system that wants to destroy you. Something flickers in Volkov's eyes. Pain, recognition. What do you know about it, American? You come from a free country. You have no idea what it is like to live in a cage. You are right, I do not know that. But I know what it is like to feel trapped. To feel like you have lost everything that mattered. McKenna takes a step closer. What I saw just now, that sabotage, it will not just hurt Stalin. It will hurt your crew. Anton, Bear, Misha, Dmitri, they will be the ones who die when that system fails in combat. Volkov's hand drops away from the pistol, his shoulders sewn. Suddenly he looks 10 years older. You do not understand. None of you understand. My family, my wife's family, they were taken in 1937. Kulaks, they said, enemies of the people. They were farmers, just farmers. My wife's father was shot. Her mother died in a labor camp. My brother disappeared. I do not even know if he is alive. The words come out like poison being drained from a wound. McKenna listens, does not interrupt. I swore I would make them pay, Volkov continues. The system, Stalin, all of them. If this tank fails, if the KV program fails, maybe it weakens them. Maybe it costs them the next war. And what about Bear? What about Misha? They are victims of the same system. You would sacrifice them to hurt the men at the top? Volkov slumps against the tank. For a moment, he looks lost. What would you have me do? Just accept it? Just follow orders like a good soldier? McKenna moves closer, sits down on an ammunition crate across from the Russian. I lost my family too. Not to Stalin, to myself, to the bottle, to the memories. I came home from France in 1918, and I could not stop seeing the faces of the men who died under my command, could not stop hearing their screams. My wife tried to understand. My son was just a baby, but I pushed them away, drank instead of living, raged instead of healing. By the time I woke up, they were gone. He pulls out the folded letter from his jacket, hands it to Volkov. My ex-wife sent me this before I left New York. My boy David, he is 16. He wants to join the army, wants to be a man. She says he wants to be a man since I never taught him how. Volkov reads the letter slowly. His English is better than he lets on. When he finishes, he hands it back. His face has changed. The anger is still there, but something else too. Understanding. I have lost everything in America, McKenna says. My family, my career, my self-respect. I came here thinking maybe I could find something. Purpose, maybe. or just a place where my past did not matter? He meets Volkov's eyes. But I will not stand by and watch good men die for bad reasons. Not again. Fix what you broke, Nikolai, or I will. Silence stretches between them. Outside, the wind howls like something dying. Inside the hangar, two broken men from two broken countries sit in the shadow of a steel giant and decide whether trust is possible in a world built on lies. Finally, Volkov stands. He walks to the tank, opens his tool bag, begins reconnecting the hydraulic line. If you tell anyone about this, he says quietly, they will kill us both. I know. Then why keep my secret? McKenna stands too, walks over to help with the repairs. His hands remember the work, even after 20 years. Because you are not my enemy, Nikolai. Because we are both just men trying to find a reason to keep fighting. And because I think maybe we can save each other. They work in silence for the next hour, repairing what Volkov tried to destroy. When they finish, Volkov offers his hand again. This time, when McKenna takes it, something shifts. A bond forms. The kind of bond that only exists between men who have seen each other's worst moments and chosen not to look away. I'm sorry, Volkov says. For what? For judging you, for thinking Americans cannot understand suffering. McKenna manages a tired smile. We all suffer, brother. We just do it in different languages. From that night forward, something changes. Volkov begins to trust McKenna, really trust him. They spend long evenings talking, sharing stories of their wars, their losses, their regrets. Volkov introduces McKenna to his crew not as an observer, but as a colleague. The men warm to him slowly, the way soldiers always warm to someone who has proven himself under pressure. Bear starts speaking in McKenna's presence. Not much, just a word or two here and there. But from a man who spent 5 years in hell learning that silence is survival, every word is a gift. Anton stops flinching when McKenna approaches, begins asking questions about American tanks, American tactics. His hands shake less when he talks about machines, more when he talks about anything else. Misha attaches himself to McKenna like a shadow, asks endless questions about America, about New York, about what it is like to have a father. McKenna answers as best he can, and every answer feels like a small redemption for the son he abandoned. Dmitri lends McKenna his books. They discuss Pushkin and Tolstoy in broken English, in worse Russian, and somehow understanding happens anyway. Poetry, McKenna learns, is one of the few things that survives translation intact. The winter deepens. Christmas comes and goes, unmarked in atheist Russia, but observed quietly by men who remember when faith was allowed. McKenna spends New Year's Eve 1940 with the crew of KV-2012, drinking vodka that tastes like paint thinner and singing songs nobody knows all the words to. At midnight, Volkov raises his glass. To brotherhood, the only thing worth dying for. They drink. McKenna thinks about David. Wonders if his son is celebrating somewhere in New York. Wonders if Sarah let him have a sip of champagne. Wonders if they are thinking about him. Probably not. January 1940 brings news from the West. The winter war against Finland drags on. The mighty Soviet army, which was supposed to crush the small Nordic country in weeks, is bleeding in the snow. Stalin rages. Heads roll, sometimes literally. The KV tanks are rushed into production, flaws and all, because the motherland needs steel miracles. In February, KV-2012 gets orders. They are going to the front. The Karelian Isthmus, the Mannerheim Line, real combat. McKenna requests permission to go as an embedded journalist. The political officers debate this for days. An American at the front? Unthinkable, but also useful for propaganda. Look, even the capitalists admire Soviet might. Permission is granted with conditions. McKenna will observe only, will not participate in combat, will write approved articles only, will be watched at all times. He agrees to all of it. Lies come easy now. He is learning. They travel north in a convoy of trucks and tanks, a steel snake sliding through winter forests. The temperature drops to 30 below. McKenna's breath freezes in his mustache. His fingers go numb inside his gloves. This is a different kind of cold than he knew in France. This is the cold that killed Napoleon. The cold that thinks human beings are just another thing to freeze solid and bury under snow. The front lines are chaos, burning buildings, frozen corpses, Finnish ski troops appearing like ghosts, killing, vanishing. The Soviet soldiers look shell-shocked. They expected an easy victory. They got hell instead. KV-2012 takes position on a ridge overlooking a section of the Mannerheim Line. Concrete bunkers, dragon's teeth anti-tank obstacles, machine gun nests, everything the Finns have built to stop the Soviet advance. The order comes at dawn: advance, break through, support the infantry assault. McKenna watches from the foxhole as the tank rumbles forward, watches the 152mm gun speak with the voice of God. Each shot is thunder and lightning compressed into a single moment of terrible beauty. The bunkers explode like toys. Concrete and steel and men disappear in columns of smoke and fire. But the Finns fight back. Molotov cocktails arc through the air like falling stars. Satchel charges detonate against the armor. The KV-2 keeps moving, keeps firing, invincible in its rage. Then the terrain changes. A hidden trench, a depression in the snow. Anton does not see it until too late. The tank lurches. 10 degrees, 15, 20. The turret jams. Inside, McKenna can imagine the panic, can imagine Volkov barking orders, Bear trying to hand crank the traverse, Anton trying to level out, the gun frozen, pointing at nothing useful. Finnish infantry seize the opportunity. They swarm forward like wolves sensing wounded prey. McKenna does not think, does not plan, does not remember that he is supposed to be an observer. He just runs. Runs across open ground toward the tank. Bullets snap past his head. A mortar round explodes close enough to throw him sideways. He gets up, keeps running, reaches the tank and pounds on the hull. Reverse angle, same as entry, he screams in Russian. Hand crank center. Repeat. Reverse and center. He does not know if they hear him. Does not know if they understand. He just keeps pounding, keeps shouting, until the turret hatch opens and Volkov's head appears. Their eyes meet. Understanding passes between them faster than words. The hatch slams shut. The engine roars. The tank backs up. The turret groans. Then suddenly, blessedly, it moves. Swings left. The 152mm gun finds its target. Fires. The Finnish machine gun position ceases to exist. Later, much later, when the battle is over and the line is broken, and the Soviets claim victory at a cost they will never admit, McKenna sits in a crater with the crew of KV-2012. They share cigarettes in silence, in the understanding that they survived something together. Misha is burned. Not badly, but enough. A shell misfired, spilled burning propellant. McKenna uses his medical kit, the one he has carried since France, to treat the wounds. His hands remember the work, remember other young men with other burns in other wars. "You saved me," Misha says in broken English. "Like father." McKenna's throat tightens. "You saved yourself, kid. You did not panic. You kept loading. That is what saved you." But Misha looks at him with eyes that need to believe in heroes, and McKenna does not have the heart to argue. The Winter War ends in March 1940. The Soviets claim victory. The Finns claim survival. Both are probably right. KV-2012 returns to Leningrad with battle scars and a reputation. The crew that was expected to die in their first engagement has become something else. Veterans, brothers, a family forged in fire. McKenna should leave now. His 6 months are almost up. His articles, censored and sanitized, have been published. His pay is waiting. He could go home. But home to what? An empty apartment in New York? A son who does not speak to him? A country that only remembers the war as something that happened to other people? He extends his contract. Another 6 months. The editors at Popular Mechanics are thrilled. The Soviet authorities are satisfied. Only Volkov seems to understand the real reason. "You are running away, Jim," he says one night over vodka in the barracks. "Maybe, or maybe I am running towards something." "What?" McKenna looks at the men around him. Bear, maintaining his gun with the care other men reserve for children. Anton, sleeping fitfully, muttering in his dreams. Dmitri, writing poetry by candlelight. Misha, young and alive and convinced that McKenna hung the moon. "Purpose," McKenna says finally. "I am running toward purpose." The months pass. Spring 1940 becomes summer. The world holds its breath as Hitler conquers France. Britain stands alone. America debates intervention. Stalin watches and plans and purges and prepares. McKenna celebrates his 39th birthday in June 1940. Volkov and the crew smuggle in a cake, probably requisitioned through some black market magic. It tastes like sawdust and hope. McKenna blows out a single candle and makes a wish he does not speak aloud. He wishes his son could see him now, could see him sober, useful, part of something larger than his own pain. Could see that maybe, just maybe, his father is not entirely beyond redemption. In August, a letter arrives from America. McKenna's hands shake as he opens it. Sarah's handwriting, but not Sarah's words. Mr. McKenna, your ex-wife gave me your address. I am writing because you should know that your son David enlisted in the United States Army. He lied about his age. He is 17 but claimed to be 18. I discovered this when processing his paperwork, but by then it was too late to stop it without destroying his chance at service. He is at basic training now. Fort Benning, he specifically requested the tank corps. When I asked him why, he said, and I quote, "I want to be a man since my father never taught me how." The letter is signed by some recruiting officer whose name McKenna does not register. All he can see is that one sentence burned into his brain like shrapnel. I want to be a man since my father never taught me how. McKenna sits very still for a very long time. Around him, the barracks bustles with activity. Men cleaning weapons, writing letters, playing cards. The ordinary business of soldiers preparing for wars that may never come or may come tomorrow. Volkov finds him there an hour later, still holding the letter, still frozen. Bad news? McKenna shows him the letter. Volkov reads it slowly, his face grave. Your son, Volkov says quietly. He joins the army to prove he is not like me, or to prove he is exactly like you. Volkov sits beside him. When I was young, I hated my father. He was a hard man, cold, never showed affection. I swore I would be different, but when I joined the Red Army, I realized I had become him anyway. We cannot escape our fathers, Jim. We can only try to understand them. McKenna folds the letter carefully, puts it in his jacket pocket next to the old letter from Sarah. His collection of failures preserved in paper and regret. What do? You go home, you find your son, you tell him the truth. What truth? That I am a drunk who abandoned him? That I loved the war more than I loved him? That I came to Russia because I could not face him? No. Volkov's voice is firm. You tell him that you made mistakes, that you are trying to be better, that you are proud of him. That is all sons want from fathers. Acknowledgement, pride, permission to be themselves. McKenna wants to believe this, wants to think it is that simple, but he knows better. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. I will think about it, he says. But he does not book passage home, does not resign his position, does not even write to David. He tells himself it is because he needs to finish his work, tells himself the timing is bad, tells himself lies and calls them reasons. The truth, which he will not admit for many months yet, is simpler and more terrible. He is afraid. He is afraid of facing his son, afraid of seeing disappointment in eyes that used to look at him with wonder, afraid that if he goes home, he will lose the one thing he has found in Russia. He will lose the feeling of being useful, of mattering, of having brothers who need him. So he stays. Fall 1940 arrives, then winter again. The world spins toward catastrophe while McKenna remains in his voluntary exile, training with men who have become closer than family, preparing for a war that everyone knows is coming, but nobody wants to name. In January 1941, a message arrives from the NKVD, not a request, a statement. Mr. McKenna, you have been in the Soviet Union for 16 months. Your visa expires in 2 weeks. You may renew for another 6 months, or you may depart. If you choose to renew, understand that circumstances may prevent departure before the term expires. Choose wisely. Translation: stay and you might not leave alive. War is coming. Foreigners are liabilities. McKenna reads the message 3 times, thinks about New York, about David, somewhere in Georgia learning to be a soldier, about Sarah, who probably thinks he is dead or might as well be, about the life he could still salvage if he leaves now. Then he thinks about Volkov, about Bear, about Anton and his nightmares, about Misha and his hero worship, about Dmitri and his poetry, about the tank, that steel cathedral where he found a congregation of broken men trying to save each other. He renews his visa. The political officer who processes the paperwork looks at him with something between respect and contempt. You are either very brave or very stupid, American. Probably both. Why stay? Your country wants nothing to do with this war. Why should you? McKenna thinks about how to answer this, settles on the truth. Because for the first time in 20 years, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be. The officer stamps the paperwork. Then welcome to hell, Mr. McKenna. I hope you survive long enough to regret this decision. Spring 1941 comes late and reluctant. The snow melts, the mud arrives, and with it, rumors. Germany is massing troops on the border. Millions of them, thousands of tanks, the largest invasion force in human history. Stalin, in his paranoia and wisdom, declares these rumors to be Western propaganda designed to provoke war between socialist allies. Anyone who suggests otherwise disappears. The Tank Corps prepares anyway. New orders arrive almost daily, repositioning, reinforcements, ammunition stockpiles, every move designed to look like routine training while actually preparing for the apocalypse. In May, KV-2012 gets new orders. Deploy to Lithuania, the Raseiniai sector, guard the approaches to Leningrad. It is a strategic position, a single road running through farmland toward the heart of Soviet territory. Whoever controls this road controls access to the Baltic. Whoever controls the Baltic might control the outcome of the war. The crew accepts these orders with the fatalism of men who have stopped believing in survival. McKenna watches them pack their meager possessions, write their letters home, say their goodbyes to comrades who might be corpses by summer. Volkov approaches him privately the night before they deploy. "Jim, I need to tell you something." "What?" "The NKVD, they know who you are. They know you are not just a journalist. They know you were a tank commander in the American Army." McKenna's blood goes cold. "How?" "Does it matter? They know. And they are watching you. If war comes, if you are still here, they will assume you are a speaker." Volkov grips his shoulder. "Leave now, brother. Tonight, I can arrange transport to the Finnish border. You can cross over, make your way home, and leave you. We are already dead, Jim. We are Soviet tank crew in the path of the German advance. But you have a chance. You have a son. Go to him." McKenna thinks about David, 17 years old, somewhere in America, learning to kill and hoping to prove he is brave. Thinks about all the words he should have said, all the moments he missed, all the damage he can never repair. But he also thinks about the men standing beside Volkov. About Bear, who finally learned to speak again because someone listened. About Anton, whose nightmares became bearable because someone understood. About Misha, who found a father in a foreign drunk with nothing left to lose. About Dmitri, who found someone who appreciated poetry in a world that only valued bullets. He thinks about the tank, about steel and purpose, and the feeling of mattering. "I am staying," he says. "Jim?" "I'm staying, Nikolai. I left my son once. I will not leave my brothers." Volkov's eyes glisten. Russians do not cry, but they come close. "Then we die together. Maybe. Or maybe we live. Maybe we do something that matters." McKenna manages a smile. "Besides, someone needs to keep your crazy Russian asses alive." They shake hands. Then for the first time they embrace. A brief, fierce hug between men who know words are inadequate for what they need to say. That night, McKenna writes a letter to David. Writes everything he should have said years ago. Writes about mistakes and regrets and hopes. Writes about finding purpose in unexpected places. Writes about standing with brothers even when the smart choice is to run. Writes about courage not being the absence of fear, but the presence of something worth dying for. He seals the letter, addresses it, knows it will probably never be mailed, puts it in his jacket pocket anyway, next to the other ghosts. June 20th, 1941. The convoy rolls toward Lithuania under a sky that looks like a bruise. KV-2012 sits in the middle of the column, 43 tons of steel and stubbornness, crewed by men the world has already written off as casualties. McKenna rides in the tank now, not as a journalist, not as an observer, as crew. The Soviet officers do not question it. They have bigger problems than one American who wants to die with Russians. As they cross into Lithuania, Misha asks the question they are all thinking, but nobody wants to say out loud. "Kapitan McKenna, do you think we will survive this war?" McKenna looks at the boy, at all of them, Bear, Anton, Dmitri, Volkov, his brothers, his redemption, his last chance at being the man he should have been for his son. "I do not know, Misha, but I know this. Whatever comes, we face it together. And that is enough. It has to be enough. Because on June 22nd, 1941, 300 divisions of the Wehrmacht will come screaming across the border. Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in human history. And standing in their way, on a lonely road in Lithuania, is one Soviet heavy tank, one American drunk, and 5 broken men who decided that courage is not about surviving. It is about standing when everything says to run. The sound comes first. Always the sound comes first. It is 3 in the morning on June 22nd, 1941, and Captain James McKenna is not sleeping. None of them are sleeping. How can you sleep when the earth itself is screaming? The German artillery starts at 3:05. The barrage is unlike anything McKenna heard in France, and he heard plenty. This is not artillery. This is the end of the world compressed into sound. Thousands of guns firing in synchronized fury. The ground shakes. The air vibrates. Inside KV 2012, parked in a defensive position overlooking the Raseiniai crossroads, dust falls from every surface like snow made of destruction. Volkov is already at his station. His face in the dim light of the commander's lamp looks carved from stone. No fear, no surprise, just the grim acceptance of a man who knew this was coming and hoped he was wrong. "So it begins," he says in Russian. Then switching to English, "Jim, you should not be here." McKenna is wedging himself into the radio operator's position, a space not designed for a man his size. Little late for that conversation, Nikolai. Bear is checking the breech of the 152mm gun with the methodical care of a priest preparing for Mass. His massive hands move with surprising gentleness. Anton sits at the driver's station, gripping the controls so hard his knuckles are white. Dmitri and Misha crouch in the turret basket, surrounded by shells that weigh more than they do. "Radio is dead," McKenna reports after trying several frequencies. "Either jammed or the relay stations are gone." "Then we are alone." Volkov's voice is calm, steady, the voice of a man who has made peace with his fate. "Bear, load high explosive. Anton, engine start. Dmitri, Misha, secure ammunition. We do what we came here to do." The V2K diesel engine coughs, rumbles, roars to life. 43 tons of Soviet engineering and desperation becomes animate. Outside, the eastern horizon is turning orange. Not sunrise, artillery fire. The world burning at 3 in the morning. McKenna has been in combat before. Soissons, 1918. The Meuse are gone, places where men died in mud and machine gun fire. But this feels different. This feels apocalyptic. This feels like God finally got tired of humanity's nonsense and decided to start over. At 4:15, the first German scout vehicles appear on the road below. Motorcycle combinations, light armored cars, moving fast, probing for resistance, looking for the Soviet lines that no longer exist because the front dissolved under the opening barrage. Volkov watches through his periscope. "Hold fire, let them pass. We wait for the armor." The scouts race past the hill where KV 2012 sits hidden among trees. They do not see the tank, do not know that 6 men and 1 American are watching them rush toward their deaths or glory or whatever awaits at the end of this road. 5:03 a.m. The sun is rising now, real sunrise mixed with false dawn of burning villages. And with the light comes the armor. Panzer Mark IIIs, dozens of them, moving in loose formation up the road, confident, unstoppable. The vanguard of the 6th Panzer Division. Behind them, truck columns, infantry, artillery, supply wagons, the entire apparatus of blitzkrieg doing what it does best. McKenna counts tanks, loses count at 40. His mouth is dry. His hands are steady, but his heart is hammering like it is trying to escape his chest. Volkov's voice cuts through the tension. "Range 800 meters, bear, target lead tank, high explosive, fire when ready." Time slows down. McKenna has experienced this before. Combat time where seconds stretch like taffy and you can see individual raindrops hanging in the air. He watches Bear traverse the gun, watches him make minute adjustments, watches his finger curl around the firing mechanism. The 152mm howitzer speaks with the voice of judgment. The recoil rocks the entire tank. The sound inside the turret is beyond deafening, beyond painful. It is a physical force that tries to shove your brain out through your ears. McKenna's teeth rattle. His vision blurs. 800 meters away, the lead Panzer Mark III ceases to exist. The high explosive shell hits its center mass and the vehicle comes apart like a toy stomped by an angry child. The turret flies 15 feet straight up. The hull splits open. Fire and smoke and things that used to be men spray in every direction. The German column stops. Confused. Where did that come from? "Reload," Volkov barks. "Dmitri, Misha, faster. Bear, target tank at 700 meters, left side of road." The loaders, these 2 young men with poetry and hope and no business being here, struggle with the next shell. 48 kilograms of metal and explosive. It takes both of them, grunting, straining, to lift it and slide it into the breach. The breach closes with a sound like a bank vault locking. Bear is already aiming. Fire. The second Panzer dies, then the third, then the fourth. Each shot is perfect. Each shell finds its mark. Bear, the man who spent 5 years in a gulag and forgot how to speak, has found his language. And his language is violence delivered with surgical precision. The German column is in chaos now. Tanks are trying to turn around, trying to scatter, trying to do anything except sit on this road and die. Their commanders are screaming into radios, calling for support, calling for airstrikes, calling for someone to tell them what the hell is shooting at them. Some of the Panzers try to return fire. Their 50mm guns bark. Shells impact the hill, impact the trees. One shell hits KV-2012 directly on the frontal armor. The sound is like being inside a bell when it is struck. The entire crew is thrown against their stations. McKenna's head bounces off the radio equipment. Blood runs down his face from a cut above his eye. He wipes it away and keeps watching. The armor held. 75mm of Soviet steel plate absorbed a direct hit and did not even dent. Volkov is laughing, actually laughing. They cannot hurt us. Do you hear me, brothers? They cannot hurt us. For 2 hours it continues. KV-2012 sits on its hill like a medieval castle, raining destruction on the German column. McKenna loses count of the kills. 15 tanks, 20, 25. The road below has become a graveyard of burning metal. But the Germans are not stupid. They are learning, adapting. Around 7:30, they stop trying to force the road. Start trying to flank. Panzers move into the fields on either side, attempting to get around the hill, get a side shot where the armor is thinner. Anton at the driver's station sees them first. "Commander, enemy tanks moving left and right. They are trying to surround us." Volkov curses in Russian. Something about German mothers and farm animals. "Anton, back us up 20 meters. Keep us hull down. Use the terrain." The tank reverses. The driver's skill is evident. Anton, this nervous man with shaking hands and nightmares, handles 43 tons like a racing car. He positions them perfectly, using the slope of the hill to hide the lower hull, presenting only the thickest armor to the enemy. More Panzers die, but they keep coming, wave after wave. The 6th Panzer Division has been stopped, but they are not retreating. They are committing more and more resources to destroying this single tank that has cost them 2 hours and 27 vehicles. Around 9 a.m., something changes. The radio, dead since the start of the battle, suddenly crackles to life. German voices. They must be close, using a frequency that bypasses the jamming. McKenna, whose German is better than his Russian, translates. They are calling for 88mm guns, anti-aircraft guns. They are bringing them up to engage us. Volkov's face goes grim. The 88. That can penetrate our armor. At close range, yes. How long do we have? They say 30 minutes to bring them into position. Volkov looks at his crew, at Bear, who has not missed a shot, at Anton, whose fear has transformed into cold competence, at Dmitri and Misha, exhausted from loading shells but still moving, at McKenna, this American who had no reason to be here, except that he chose to be. 30 minutes, Volkov says. Then we have 30 minutes to kill as many as possible before they kill us. Nobody argues. Nobody suggests retreat. They all knew from the moment they took this position that this was a one-way trip. You do not stop a Panzer division with one tank and live to tell about it. You just try to make it cost them. The next 30 minutes are the longest and shortest of McKenna's life. Every second drags. Every second flies. They fight with the intensity of men who know the clock is running down. 31 tanks destroyed. 32. 33. The heat inside the turret has become unbearable. 110 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe more. The gun breech radiates heat like a furnace. Every time they fire, the recoil mechanism spits hydraulic fluid that burns skin on contact. Dmitri has blisters on his hands. Misha's face is red and swollen from heat exhaustion. But they do not stop. Cannot stop. Misha is crying as he loads, tears streaming down his face, but his hands never stop moving. He lifts each shell like it weighs the world. His muscles scream. His back threatens to give out. But he thinks about his parents, shot in the purges. Thinks about the orphanage where guards beat him for crying. Thinks about Captain McKenna calling him son, and he loads another shell. Dmitri is praying under his breath, poetry mixed with Orthodox liturgy, words tumbling over each other. Pushkin and Psalms, verses about death and beauty and the eternal soul. His hands are bleeding. The sharp edges of the shells have cut through his gloves. But poets understand that blood is just another kind of ink, another way to write truth on the world. Anton's hands no longer shake. Fear has been burned away, leaving only the task. He drives with precision that would impress a tank school instructor. Uses every dip in terrain, every tree, every shadow. Keeps them alive with nothing but skill and steel nerve. He does not think about his dead wife anymore. Does not hear her screaming in the artillery barrage that killed her. Right now, in this moment, there is only the tank and the ground and the next maneuver. Bear does not speak, does not react, just aims and fires with mechanical perfection. But inside his head, a calculation runs, a lifetime of mathematics and engineering compressed into split-second decisions. Angle, windage, target speed, barrel wear, temperature, humidity, all the variables that turn good shooting into great shooting. The Gulag tried to break him, tried to turn him into an animal, but they could not take away what he was born to be. An engineer, a craftsman, a man who understands that violence, like everything else, can be done with precision and care. Volkov commands with quiet authority, calling targets, adjusting fire, managing their dwindling ammunition. They started with 40 shells. They are down to 14. Each shot now has to count double, triple. He watches the battlefield like a chess master watches the board, sees patterns, understands that they are not just killing tanks, they are killing time, buying minutes with metal and blood. Every second they hold is a second the Soviet lines can reform. Every German tank burning on this road is one less tank attacking somewhere else. McKenna does what he can, watches for threats, translates German radio chatter, helps Dmitri and Misha with the shells when they falter. His broken arm makes him clumsy, useless for heavy work. But he can encourage, can steady Misha when the boy's legs shake, can quote poetry back to Dmitri to keep him centered, can tell Anton when to move before the German radios even finish giving orders. He is 39 years old. His back hurts, his head is bleeding, his arm is shattered, and he has never felt more alive, never felt more useful. This is what he was born for. Not to be a husband, not to be a father. Those roles he failed. But this, leading men in combat, keeping them alive through impossible situations, this he understands, this he can do. A German shell hits so close it buries the tank in dirt. Anton has to reverse blindly, clearing the viewports. When vision returns, a Panzer IV is 30 meters away, point-blank range, its gun traversing toward them. "Fire!" Volkov screams. Bear does not have time to aim, just pulls the trigger on instinct. The 152mm shell hits the Panzer center mass at a range where missing is impossible. The German tank does not explode. It disintegrates. Pieces of it rain down on KV-2012 like metal hail. 12 shells left. McKenna checks his watch. 9:15. 20 minutes until the 88s arrive. 20 minutes to make a last stand worth remembering. At 9:35, the 88s arrive. McKenna hears them being positioned. Hears the German officers barking orders. Hears the metallic sounds of guns being loaded, aimed, prepared. "Nikolai," he says quietly, "they are ready." Volkov nods. He knew. They all knew. Final target, Bear, that command tank at 600 meters. The one with all the antennas. Send them a message they will not forget. Bear aims. The last shot of the engagement. The 152mm gun fires one more time. The German command tank explodes so violently that pieces of it land on other vehicles 200 meters away. Then the 88s fire. The first shell hits the turret, does not penetrate, but the impact is tremendous. The turret ring screeches, metal grinds against metal, the traverse mechanism jams halfway through rotation. "Turret is locked," Bear reports, his voice empty of emotion. "Cannot traverse." "Hand crank," Volkov orders. "Dmitri, Misha, help him." But before they can start, 3 more 88 shells hit in rapid succession. The third one punches through the side armor. The shell does not explode. Does not need to. The kinetic energy alone is catastrophic. The shell enters through the sponson, travels through the crew compartment at supersonic speed, and exits through the opposite side. In the half-second of its passage, it destroys the radio, shatters McKenna's left arm, kills Misha instantly, and wounds Dmitri so badly that he will never walk again. The noise, the light, the heat, the sudden absence where a person used to be. Combat does this, removes people from existence in less time than it takes to blink. McKenna looks down at his arm. It is bent wrong. Bone shows white through torn skin. The pain has not arrived yet. Shock is a mercy. He looks at Misha. The boy, the orphan who wanted a father, is gone. Just gone. His body is there, but whatever made him Misha has been deleted from the universe. Dmitri is screaming and trying to hold his legs together. Bear moves to help him, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he applies a tourniquet. Volkov is shouting orders, but McKenna cannot hear them through the ringing in his ears. Anton is crying at the driver's station. Great heaving sobs. I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry. To whom, for what, it does not matter. Some wounds are in places medical care cannot reach. Another 88 round hits, this time the engine compartment. The diesel fuel does not explode like gasoline would, but it burns. Oh, how it burns. Black smoke begins filling the crew compartment. Abandon tank, Volkov orders. His voice is hoarse from shouting. Everyone out, now. They try. They really try. But Dmitri cannot move. His legs do not work anymore. Bear picks him up like a child and carries him toward the hatch. Anton climbs out first, then helps pull Dmitri through. Volkov goes next, then turns to help McKenna, whose broken arm makes climbing difficult. Bear is last. He stops at the hatch, looks back at the turret, at the gun he fired so perfectly, at Misha's body, which they cannot take, cannot even bury. Goodbye, boy, Bear says in Russian, the first words McKenna has heard him speak in combat. You were brave. Then he climbs out into daylight that feels like judgment. They do not get far. German infantry is closing in. The crew, what is left of it, takes cover in a shell crater 50 meters from the burning tank. Anton has his rifle. Volkov has his pistol. Bear has his hands, which have killed men before and will again if necessary. McKenna has nothing but a broken arm and the certain knowledge that they are about to die. But the Germans do not shoot. They surround the crater with weapons ready, but they do not fire. Instead, an officer approaches, middle-aged with the bearing of a professional soldier and eyes that have seen too much. He speaks in German. Which of you commands this crew? Volkov stands slowly, hands visible. I do, Lieutenant Nikolai Volkov, Red Army. The German officer studies him. Then his eyes move to McKenna, taking in the non-Soviet features, the American jacket visible under the Russian tanker coveralls. And you are not Russian. McKenna stands as well, cradling his broken arm. Captain James McKenna, United States Army, retired. The German's eyebrows rise. An American, in a Soviet tank, fighting against Germany. He seems more curious than angry. Why? It is a good question. Why indeed? McKenna looks at Volkov, at Bear, at Anton, holding the dying Dmitri, at the burning KV-2012 where Misha's body is becoming ash. Because they are my brothers, McKenna says simply, and you do not abandon your brothers. The German officer considers this, nods slowly. I understand. I am Major Klaus von Steiner, 6th Panzer Division. He switches to accented English. We have met before, I think. Battle Wood, 1918. I was a lieutenant then. You led the tank assault on the northern sector. McKenna stares. The face is older, harder, but yes, he remembers. A German officer being taken prisoner, looking at the American tanks with a mixture of fear and fascination. Klaus, little Klaus from Bavaria who wanted to study engineering? The same, though I am not so little anymore. Von Steiner's face is grave. This morning your tank killed 43 of my vehicles, including the one carrying my son. He was 19 years old, his first day in combat. The words land like another shell. McKenna feels them impact, feels the weight of them. Klaus, I am sorry. I am so sorry. Are you? Would you have fired differently if you knew? The honest answer is no. McKenna would have done exactly the same. War does not care about apologies, does not care about the 19-year-olds in the vehicles you destroy. No, McKenna says, I would not have. Von Steiner nods. Respect, perhaps, for the honesty. My son's name was Friedrich. He wanted to be a doctor. Instead, he became a casualty statistic. The major's voice is hollow. Your tank crew held my entire division for 8 hours. 8 hours. Do you understand what that means? 8th Army was supposed to reach Daugavpils tonight. Now maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Because of you, thousands of Soviet soldiers escaped encirclement. Tens of thousands of civilians evacuated. All because 6 men in one tank decided to stand. He pauses, looks at the burning KV-2, at the graveyard of Panzers littering the road. I should execute you, all of you. My men want your blood. They lost friends today, brothers. But I cannot do it, because what you did today, it was not murder. It was war. And in war, soldiers respect soldiers. Von Steiner gives orders in German. His men lower their weapons. Medical personnel move forward to treat Dmitri and McKenna. You are my prisoners now, von Steiner says. I give you my word as an officer that you will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. You will receive medical care. You will be transported to a prisoner of war camp. And you will live, though I suspect you will wish you had not. He turns to leave, then stops. Looks back at McKenna. James, if we survive this war, if we are both still alive when this madness ends, I hope we can meet again as men, not soldiers. I would like to understand how we came to this. 2 men who shared brandy once, now on opposite sides of hell. I would like that too, Klaus. The German major walks away. His men begin the grim work of recovering their dead. The Battle of Raseiniai is over. KV-2012 has fallen. But the story somehow continues. The German field hospitals organize chaos. Wounded soldiers everywhere. German, Soviet, even a few Lithuanians caught in the crossfire. The doctors do not care about flags. They just do triage. Who can be saved? Who cannot? Who gets morphine and a quiet place to die? Dmitri does not die, but the doctor's prognosis is grim. The legs will have to come off, both of them. The damage is too severe. Bear, who has not left Dmitri's side, translates this to the poet in Russian. Dmitri just nods. His face is pale. His eyes are somewhere else. Somewhere poetry cannot reach. Will I write again? Dmitri asks quietly. Your hands are fine, the doctor says. You will write. Then the legs do not matter. A poet does not need legs. He needs words. But Dmitri's eyes say otherwise. They say he has lost something that surgery cannot restore. McKenna's arm is set and splinted. The doctor, an older man with steady hands and sad eyes, works efficiently. You are American, he observes. Yes. Why fight for the Soviets? Everyone keeps asking that question. McKenna is getting tired of answering it. I fought for the men beside me, not for flags. A soldier's answer, the doctor finishes the splint. This will heal, but not well. You will have pain, limited mobility. The bones are badly fractured. I will live? Unfortunately for you, yes. You will live to be a prisoner of war. I am not sure that is better than dying. McKenna thinks about this. Thinks about David, somewhere in America, learning to be a tanker. Thinks about Sarah, who probably assumes he is dead. Thinks about Volkov and Bear and Anton and Dmitri, still alive, still together. It is better, McKenna says. As long as my brothers live, it is better. The weeks that follow blur together. The prisoners are transported west, away from the fighting. They travel in trucks, in trains, in forced marches. They see the devastation of Operation Barbarossa from the German side. Burned Soviet vehicles. Endless columns of prisoners. The scale of the disaster is impossible to comprehend. Von Steiner, true to his word, keeps them together. Keeps them safe, relatively speaking. They are fed, guarded but not abused. Treated as soldiers, not animals. One night in a temporary camp near Minsk, Von Steiner comes to their barracks. He brings vodka, sits with Volkov and McKenna, and talks until dawn. My son wanted to know why we fight, Von Steiner says, already drunk. I told him it was duty, honor, service to the fatherland. But the truth? I do not know anymore. I think we fight because we do not know how to stop. Volkov, equally drunk, raises his tin cup. To fathers who fail their sons by teaching them to be soldiers. McKenna drinks to that, thinks about David, wonders what kind of soldier his boy is becoming, wonders if he will survive whatever war America eventually joins. Klaus, McKenna says, your son, Friedrich. Tell me about him, not the soldier, the boy. And Von Steiner does. Talks for an hour about a kid who loved music and hated mathematics. who wanted to heal people, not kill them, who enlisted because everyone else was enlisting and he did not want to be left behind, who died in the first 5 minutes of his first battle, crushed when a 152 mm shell turned his Panzer into scrap metal. He never fired a shot, von Steiner says, never killed anyone. He was innocent, and I sent him to die. You did not send him, Volkov says quietly. The war sent him. The madmen who start wars sent him. You just could not save him. Can any of us save anyone? McKenna asked, not rhetorically, really asking. I could not save Misha, could not save my son from following my footsteps, could not even save myself. They sit in silence for a while. 3 soldiers from 3 different armies, united only by guilt and vodka, in the certain knowledge that war destroys everything it touches. If we survive, von Steiner says finally, if we live through this, promise me something. What? McKenna asks. Promise me we will tell them. Tell the ones who come after. Tell them that we were not heroes. We were not monsters. We were just men. Broken men trying to do our duty in a world gone mad. Promise me they will know. I promise, McKenna says. I promise, Volkov echoes. They drink until the vodka is gone and the sun is rising. When von Steiner leaves, he shakes their hands. Not as an enemy, not as a captor, as a brother in the ancient order of men who have killed and been broken by it. The days become weeks. The weeks become months. Summer turns to fall. The German advance, unstoppable in June, begins to slow in September. The Russian winter is coming. Napoleon learned what that means. The Wehrmacht is about to learn it again. McKenna, Volkov, Bear, Anton, and Dmitri are moved to a permanent POW camp in Poland. Stalag something or other. The Germans have so many camps now they are running out of names. The camp is brutal, but not murderous. Overcrowded, undersupplied, cold, but they are soldiers. They have survived worse. Volkov organizes the Soviet prisoners into work details, keeping them busy, keeping them alive. Bear becomes the camp blacksmith, his gulag experience with metalwork making him valuable. Anton tends the camp garden, growing vegetables in soil that should not support life. Dmitri teaches, reading, writing poetry to men who are forgetting what it means to be human. McKenna exists in a strange limbo. He is American. Technically, America and Germany are not at war. He should be released, repatriated, but he fought for the Soviets, killed German soldiers. The legal status is murky. Von Steiner, now a lieutenant colonel and stationed nearby, visits when he can, brings news, medicine, sometimes food. He has become their unlikely protector. In October, he brings a letter from America, from the War Department. McKenna's hands shake as he opens it. The words blur. He has to read them 3 times before they make sense. We regret to inform you that Private David McKenna was killed in action on December 8, 1941, during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. He was serving aboard the USS Arizona. His remains were not recovered. He died serving his country with honor. December 8th, Pearl Harbor, the day America entered the war, the day everything changed. David was 17 years old, lied about his age to enlist, died on a battleship in Hawaii while his father was rotting in a Polish POW camp, half a world away, unable to save him, unable to even say goodbye. McKenna does not cry, cannot cry. The grief is too large. It fills every space inside him, leaving no room for tears or breath or thought. He just sits holding the letter while his world ends for the second time. Volkov finds him an hour later, reads the letter, understands immediately, sits beside him in silence because there are no words. None that matter. I left him, McKenna says finally, voice empty, dead. I left him to chase my own redemption and he died thinking I did not care. You cared, you just did not know how to show him. It does not matter now, he is gone. Sarah is alone, and I am here, trapped, useless. A failure as a father, a failure as a man. Volkov grips his shoulder. You are not a failure, Jim. You are a survivor, and survivors have a duty to remember, to honor the dead by living. Your son died a soldier. Honor him by being the man he needed you to be, even if he is not here to see it. McKenna wants to believe this, wants to think David's death means something. But meaning is in short supply in prison camps. Hope is rationed like bread. That night, he adds David's letter to the collection in his jacket. 3 letters now. Sarah's original message about David enlisting. His own unsent letter written the night before Raseiniai. And now this, the death notice, a paper trail of his failures as a father. The winter of 1941 is the coldest in decades. The Germans, unprepared for Russian winter, begin to suffer. Their advance stalls, then stops, then impossibly reverses. The Soviets counterattack. News filters into the camp through new prisoners, through rumors, through the worried faces of German guards. Moscow did not fall. Leningrad did not fall. The Wehrmacht, undefeated for 2 years, is learning how to lose. In the camp, hope grows. Maybe the war will turn. Maybe the Soviets will win. Maybe someday the prisoners will go home. But McKenna has no home to return to. David is dead. Sarah has probably moved on, remarried, built a new life. America does not need broken old tankers who fought for the communists. There is nothing waiting for him except questions he cannot answer and a grief he cannot escape. In January 1942, von Steiner visits with urgent news. The Gestapo is coming, he says without preamble. They are investigating foreign nationals who fought for the Soviets. They consider you a war criminal, James. They will execute you. Let them. Jim, no, Volkov stands. You do not get to quit. My son is dead, Nikolai. What am I staying alive for? For us, for the story, for the promise we made Klaus. Someone has to survive to tell what happened. It has to be you. Von Steiner nods. I can arrange transport tonight. A truck to the Soviet lines. It is dangerous but possible. The front is porous. Men cross both ways every night. Why help me? McKenna asks. Why risk yourself? Von Steiner's face is hard. Because my son is dead too. Because this war has taken everything from both of us. Because maybe if I save you, it balances the cosmic scales somehow. I do not know. I am not a philosopher. I am just a soldier trying to find one decent thing in an indecent world. That night, under cover of darkness, 5 men escape Stalag whatever. McKenna, Volkov, Bear, Anton, and Dmitri on a makeshift stretcher because his legs do not work. A German truck drives them to within 5 kilometers of the front lines. Von Steiner himself is at the wheel. This is as far as I can take you, he says. From here you walk. Stay low. Avoid patrols. If you are lucky, you reach Soviet lines by dawn. They climb out. The snow is knee-deep. The temperature is 20 below zero. Dmitri cannot walk. Bear will have to carry him. This is impossible. They are going to die in the snow. Von Steiner grips McKenna's good hand. Survive this, James. Tell them about Friedrich. Tell them about Misha. Tell them we were all just boys who became men too soon and died too young. I will, Klaus. I swear it. The German drives away. The 5 escapees turn east and begin walking toward what they hope is freedom, toward Soviet lines that might shoot them as deserters or welcome them as heroes, toward an uncertain future in a world that has already taken too much. They walk for hours. Bear carries Dmitri without complaint. Anton leads, his experience as a scout useful now. Volkov covers the rear. McKenna, with his broken arm and broken heart, just keeps putting one foot in front of the other. At 3 a.m., disaster strikes. A German patrol, 6 soldiers on skis, moving fast, weapons ready. They spot the escapees, shout challenges, raise rifles. Bear sets Dmitri down, turns to face them. This massive man, this gentle giant who learned kindness in the gulag, becomes what he was before the camps broke him. He becomes a soldier. The fight is brief and brutal. Bear moves with shocking speed, breaks one German's neck before he can fire, takes another's rifle and beats him unconscious with it. A 3rd German shoots Bear in the chest. Bear keeps moving, kills that German too. Then another. By the time it is over, all 6 Germans are down. So is Bear. McKenna reaches him first. The chest wound is catastrophic. Sucking, bubbling, lung shot, maybe heart. Bear, no, brother. Stay with us. Bear's eyes focus on McKenna. A slight smile touches his lips. Blood on his teeth. Tell them, tell world, we were not cowards. You are the bravest man I ever knew. After you, Captain. Bear's hand finds McKenna's, squeezes once, goes limp. Sergeant Boris Kuznetsov dies in the snow at 3:17 a.m., January 15th, 1942. He dies protecting his brothers. He dies free, which is more than he ever hoped for in the gulag. He dies with a smile, which is all anyone can ask. They cannot bury him, cannot even mark the grave. They just close his eyes and keep walking. Because Bear died so they could live, and dishonoring that sacrifice by dying too would be unforgivable. Dawn finds them at the Soviet lines. Anton approaches first, hands visible, shouting in Russian. Do not shoot. Friends, Soviet tank crew, veterans of Raseiniai. The Soviet soldiers do not shoot. They bring them in, give them food, vodka, a warm place to sit while officers decide what to do with them. A captain arrives. Young, hard NKVD insignia on his collar. He reads their story with cold eyes. Lieutenant Volkov, you lost your tank. You were captured by Germans. You escaped. These are facts? Yes, comrade captain. And this American, he fought with you? He did. Against Germany? Yes. The NKVD captain's eyes narrow. This is problematic. Americans are not at war with Germany. This man is a foreign agent, a provocateur. He will be interrogated. He is a hero of the Soviet Union, Volkov says. His voice is steel. He held Raseiniai. He killed 43 fascist tanks. He saved Soviet lives. He is a complication. The captain signals to guards. Take him, separate cell. I will question him personally. And just like that, McKenna is a prisoner again. Not German, Soviet. From one cage to another. Because the world has no place for men who fight for reasons other than flags. In the cell alone, McKenna sits on a concrete floor and finally allows himself to cry. For David, for Misha, for Bear, for all the sons who died because fathers taught them courage but not wisdom, for the fathers who survived but lost everything that mattered. He cries until there are no tears left, until he is empty, until he is nothing but a shell that used to contain a man. And then because soldiers endure, he stands up, wipes his face, prepares to face whatever comes next, because that is what survivors do. They endure, even when they do not want to, even when everything inside them is broken. They stand. They continue. They honor the dead by refusing to join them. The interrogation room smells of sweat and fear and the particular kind of desperation that comes from knowing the person asking questions already decided your guilt. Captain Yuri Brezhnev of the NKVD sits across a metal table from James McKenna and shuffles papers like a man dealing cards in a game where the house always wins. It is February 1942. McKenna has been in Soviet custody for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of questions. 3 weeks of the same conversation repeated until the words lose meaning. You are American, Brezhnev says for the 1,000th time. Yes, America is not at war with Germany. Now it is. Pearl Harbor, December 7th. But in June 1941, when you fought at Raseiniai, America was neutral. I was not fighting for America. I was fighting for my crew. Brezhnev makes a note. His pen scratches across paper like a rat in the walls. Your crew, Soviet citizens, you an American embedded with Soviet forces. This is espionage. This is journalism. I was an observer. Observers do not help load ammunition, do not call targets, do not save crews from burning tanks. Brezhnev looks up. His eyes are flat, dead. The eyes of a man who has sent better men than McKenna to their deaths and slept soundly after. You were operational. You were combatant. You killed German soldiers while your country was at peace with Germany. This is an international incident. McKenna laughs. Cannot help it. The absurdity is too much. An international incident. The Germans invade with 3 million men, slaughter civilians by the hundreds of thousands, burn entire cities. But me? One washed-up American tanker trying to keep his friends alive? That is the incident. Brezhnev's face does not change. You mock Soviet authority. I mock insanity, which seems to be the official language around here. The NKVD captain stands, walks around the table. His boots echo on concrete. He stops behind McKenna, close enough that McKenna can smell his aftershave. Something floral, grotesque in this place. Let me explain your situation, Mr. McKenna. You are American. Your country recently became our ally against the fascists. This is good. But you fought for us before this alliance. This is suspicious. It suggests you are either a communist sympathizer, which makes you politically unreliable, or you are an intelligence operative, which makes you a spy. Either way, you are a problem. So what are you going to do? Shoot me? Send me to Siberia? I could, easily. No one would ask questions. American correspondent dies in combat, tragic. But Stalin, in his wisdom, has suggested an alternative. Brezhnev drops a document on the table. Official looking. Stamps, signatures. The usual Soviet love of bureaucracy. You will remain in the Soviet Union. You will work as a technical advisor for our tank training programs. You will teach Soviet commanders American tactical doctrine. You will do this until such time as the war ends, or you die, whichever comes first. You will not contact American authorities. You will not attempt to leave. You will not speak of this arrangement to anyone. In exchange, your crew, what remains of it, will not be executed as cowards who surrendered. The words land like a punch. McKenna sits very still. You would kill them? Volkov fought like a lion. Anton, Dmitri, they are heroes. They are Soviet soldiers who lost their tank and were captured. This is sufficient grounds for execution under Order 227. Unless, of course, they have an American character witness who can vouch for their bravery. An American who has agreed to serve Soviet interests indefinitely. It is blackmail. Simple, effective blackmail. Sign away your freedom or watch your brothers die. McKenna thinks about David, about dying on the Arizona without his father knowing, about living his whole short life thinking his father did not care. McKenna could say no, could refuse, could force the Soviets to shoot him and join his son in whatever comes after. But that would kill Volkov, Anton, Dmitri, the men who survived Raseiniai, who survived POW camps and escape and bears death, who look at McKenna like he is something more than a drunk who ran away from his failures. He signs the document. Excellent, Brezhnev says. His smile is thin. Welcome to the Soviet Union, Comrade McKenna. I suspect you will regret this decision. Most men do. The tank training facility outside Kazan is a flat expanse of mud and misery. New crews train here before being sent west to die fighting Germans. The survival rate is approximately 6 weeks. Most Soviet tankers never see their second month of combat. McKenna's job is to improve those odds. He teaches in a language he barely speaks to men who do not trust him. Teaches American fire and maneuver tactics. Teaches crew coordination. Teaches the 1,000 small things that separate dead tankers from living ones. Most of his students ignore him. Some mock him. A few, the smart ones, listen. Volkov is here too. Promoted to captain, assigned to the same facility. He teaches Russian tactics, Russian discipline, Russian fatalism. Together they make an unlikely team, the Soviet true believer and the American cynic. Except Volkov is not a true believer anymore, and McKenna is not as cynical as he pretends. They share quarters, a small room with 2 beds and a window that overlooks nothing worth seeing. At night, when the vodka flows and the guards are not listening, they talk about the war, about survival, about the growing realization that they are both prisoners, just in different kinds of cages. How is Dmitri? McKenna asked one night in April. Alive. The surgeons took both legs above the knee. He is in a veterans hospital in Moscow. He writes poetry still, says losing his legs freed his mind. Volkov lights a cigarette. I think he is lying to himself, but maybe that is how men survive, by lying. And Anton? Volkov's face darkens. Anton is dead, killed himself in March, hung himself in his barracks, left a note, said he could not stop hearing his wife scream, could not stop seeing her body in the rubble. The news hits McKenna like another shell. Anton. Nervous, skilled Anton who drove KV 2012 with the touch of a surgeon, who survived Raseiniai and POW camps and the escape, who made it all the way home only to discover that home was a memory he could not live with. I should have seen it, McKenna says. Should have known he was struggling. We all struggle, Jim. Some of us hide it better. Volkov drinks. Do you want to know what his note said, the last line? Tell me. It said, tell Captain McKenna I tried to be brave like he taught me. Tell him I am sorry I failed. McKenna stands, walks to the window, stares at the darkness outside. 2 members of his crew dead now. Misha in combat, Anton by his own hand, Bear killed saving them. Only Volkov and Dmitri remain. Only 2 out of 6, and McKenna, the man who was supposed to keep them alive, is teaching new crews to take their place in the meat grinder. I cannot do this anymore, Nikolai. Yes, you can. You will. Because men like us, we do not get to quit. We only get to endure. Spring becomes summer. Summer becomes fall. The war grinds on. Stalingrad becomes the word that everyone whispers. The city where the Germans finally stopped. Where the tide began to turn. Soviet tank crews trained at Kazan ship out to Stalingrad and die in numbers that would make the devil weep. McKenna teaches. Volkov teaches. They save some, lose more. The math is brutal and simple. For every crew they train that survives, 3 more burn alive in their machines. But 3 dead is better than 4. 1 survivor is better than none. So they teach. In November, a letter arrives from America. Not from Sarah, from a lawyer. The envelope is official, legal. McKenna opens it with shaking hands. Mr. McKenna, I represent the estate of your former wife, Sarah McKenna, who passed away in September of this year. As you are listed as David McKenna's father, you are entitled to certain personal effects. Given the difficulty of international mail during wartime, I have arranged for these items to be held in trust until such time as you can claim them. Please advise your current address and situation. Sarah is dead. Cancer, probably. Or maybe grief. Maybe losing David killed her in ways that doctors cannot treat. McKenna will never know because he was not there. Was not there for David's funeral. Was not there for Sarah's final days. Was 5,000 miles away, teaching strangers to kill other strangers. Locked in a country that considers him property. He does not write back to the lawyer. What would he say? That he is trapped in the Soviet Union? That he chose this? That he traded his freedom for the lives of men he barely knew a year ago? That he has nothing to go home to anyway? He burns the letter, watches the paper curl and blacken, thinks about the life he could have lived if he had made different choices, if he had been a better husband, a better father, a better man. But thinking about could have been is a luxury that soldiers cannot afford. So he stops thinking, goes back to teaching, buries himself in work because work is the only thing that keeps the ghosts at bay. The winter of 1942 is the turning point. Stalingrad holds. The Germans are pushed back. The Red Army, fed by American equipment and Soviet blood, begins the long advance west. Every day brings news of victories, recaptured cities, destroyed German divisions. The unstoppable Wehrmacht is learning how to retreat. In January 1943, something unexpected happens. Volkov receives orders. He is being transferred, promoted to major, sent to the front to command a tank battalion, real combat command, not training, not theory, the thing every officer dreams of and dreads in equal measure. I leave in 3 days, Volkov tells McKenna. They are drinking in their quarters, a bottle of decent vodka that Volkov traded a month's tobacco ration for. I asked for you to come. They said no. You are too valuable as an instructor, too politically sensitive to risk in combat. They mean I am too useful as a hostage. Yes, that too. Volkov refills their glasses. If I die, Jim, someone needs to tell the story. Someone needs to remember Misha and Bear and Anton. Even Friedrich von Steiner. All the boys who became men too soon and died too young. That someone has to be you. I'm not a writer, Nikolai. Then learn. Because if this war has taught me anything, it is that the only thing separating history from propaganda is witnesses who tell the truth. Volkov raises his glass. To witnesses, may we live long enough to testify. They drink, talk through the night, share stories and silences, and the comfortable familiarity of men who have survived too much together to need pretense anymore. When dawn comes, they shake hands, embrace briefly, say goodbye in the clumsy way that soldiers always say goodbye, pretending it might not be forever. Volkov walks away toward the truck that will take him west, toward the war, toward whatever fate awaits men who lead tanks into combat against an enemy that has learned how to kill them efficiently. McKenna watches him go, feels something break inside his chest. Not grief, not yet, just the hollow knowledge that he is losing another brother, that the war takes everyone eventually, either their lives or their souls or their capacity to remember what it felt like to be fully human. He goes back to teaching. Months blur. 1943 becomes 1944. The Red Army pushes deeper into Europe, liberates Ukraine, Belarus, crosses into Poland. The map in the training facility's briefing room shows Soviet arrows advancing week by week, kilometer by kilometer, leaving behind a trail of shattered German divisions. McKenna hears nothing from Volkov. No letters, no news. He tells himself that no news is good news, that Volkov is alive, fighting, too busy to write. But he knows better. He has fought in wars. He understands that silence usually means one thing. In June 1944, the 5th anniversary of his arrival in the Soviet Union, McKenna is summoned to the commandant's office. The summons comes with no explanation, just an order. Report immediately. The commandant is a colonel he has never met. New assignment. The man looks at McKenna with something between respect and pity. Comrade McKenna, you have been requested by name for a special assignment. A German officer, a prisoner of war, has asked to speak with you. He claims you know each other. His name is Klaus von Steiner. McKenna's heart stops. Klaus, alive, captured by the Soviets, requesting him specifically. Where is he? Moscow, the Lubyanka prison. He is being held on war crimes charges. The NKVD has agreed to allow you to interview him. You have 48 hours. The Lubyanka is everything McKenna expected, and worse. A fortress of suffering in the heart of Moscow. Stone walls that have absorbed decades of screams. Guards with the dead eyes of men who stopped thinking of prisoners as human years ago. Klaus von Steiner sits in a cell that is barely large enough to lie down in. He has aged a decade in 3 years. Gray hair where there was brown, lines carved deep by stress and starvation. But his eyes are still sharp, still alive. James, he says when McKenna is brought in, you came. I was not sure you would. How could I not? McKenna sits on the floor across from him. There are no chairs, no comforts, just concrete and cold. How did you end up here? I was captured in Operation Barbarossa, Belarus. My entire division was encircled. Most of us died. The lucky ones, anyway. The survivors were marched to camps. I was separated when they learned I had met you. Apparently, that made me interesting. Klaus, they are saying war crimes. What happened? Von Steiner's face goes hard. After you escaped, after we lost Raseiniai, the Gestapo came asking questions. How did prisoners escape? Who helped them? I told them nothing. So they arrested me, sent me to a penal battalion. We were used for the worst assignments. Mine clearing, frontal assaults, suicide missions. Most penal battalion soldiers survived 2 weeks. I survived 2 years. God, Klaus. No, not God, just stubbornness. I refused to die before I could tell Friedrich's story, tell your Misha's story, tell all of them. Von Steiner coughs. The sound is wet, unhealthy. But now I am here. The Soviets want me to testify against other German officers. Name names, describe atrocities. They promise leniency if I cooperate. Will you? I do not know. The men they want me to name, some of them are guilty. Monsters who deserve worse than hanging. But others, James, they were just soldiers like us, following orders, trying to survive. If I testify, good men die alongside bad ones. McKenna has no answer for this. War is full of impossible choices. Testify and betray comrades. Stay silent and protect monsters. There are no good options, just degrees of wrong. Why did you ask for me? McKenna finally says. Von Steiner reaches under his threadbare blanket, pulls out a small bundle wrapped in cloth, opens it carefully. Inside is a notebook, worn, water-stained, filled with dense handwriting. I have been writing everything I remember about the war, about Friedrich, about you, about Raseiniai, about the men I commanded and the men I killed, and the difference between the two, which gets smaller every day. He hands the notebook to McKenna. I need you to keep this. If I die here, and I probably will, someone needs to tell our story. Someone who understands that we were not heroes or villains, just men. McKenna takes the notebook. The pages are filled with German script he can barely read, but he recognizes the names. Friedrich, Misha, Bear, Volkov. His own name appears dozens of times. I will keep it safe, Klaus, I promise. Thank you. Von Steiner leans back against the wall. He looks exhausted, defeated. Do you ever wonder, James, what our fathers would think of us? The men we became, the things we did? Every day. My father was a farmer, simple man, grew wheat, raised pigs. He wanted me to take over the farm. Instead, I joined the army, became an officer, led men to their deaths for a cause I stopped believing in years ago. Von Steiner's voice cracks. I think he would be ashamed of me. My father was a machinist, worked in a factory, died when I was 12. Never knew I became a soldier. Never knew I married or had a son. Never knew I failed at everything that mattered. McKenna sets the notebook aside carefully. I think he would be disappointed, but maybe not surprised. They sit in silence for a while. Two soldiers from opposite sides of the worst war in human history, united by grief and guilt and the terrible knowledge that they will carry this weight until they die. If you survive this, McKenna says, if somehow you get out of here, go home. Find what is left of your family. Tell them about Friedrich. Make sure someone remembers him as a boy, not a casualty statistic. And if you survive, von Steiner asks, what will you do? I do not know. I have no home to go back to. My son is dead. My wife is dead. My country probably thinks I am a traitor. McKenna manages a bitter smile. Maybe I will stay here. Teach Russian boys to kill German boys. Complete the circle. You are better than that, James. Better than this war made you. We are all better than this war made us. That is the tragedy. The guard comes. Interview time is over. McKenna stands to leave. Von Steiner grips his hand one last time. Tell them we tried to be good men in a bad world. That is all, just that we tried. I will, Klaus. I swear it. McKenna never sees Klaus von Steiner again. 3 months later, he receives word that the German major died in custody. Pneumonia officially. But McKenna has spent enough time in Soviet prisons to know that pneumonia is often just another word for gave up, for decided that surviving was not worth the cost, for chose the exit that does not require a rope or a razor. He keeps von Steiner's notebook, hides it with his letters from David and Sarah, his growing collection of ghosts preserved in paper and ink. The war ends in May 1945. Victory Day. The Red Army in Berlin. The 1,000-year Reich lasted 12 years and left 50 million dead. The Soviet Union celebrates. Parades, medals, speeches about the glory of sacrifice and the triumph of the motherland. McKenna does not celebrate. He drinks alone in his quarters and thinks about all the men who did not live to see this day. Misha, Bear, Anton, David, Friedrich, probably Volkov, though no official word has come. Millions of others whose names he never learned, but whose deaths contributed to this victory that feels more like exhaustion than triumph. In June, a visitor arrives at the training facility. A general, metal-heavy uniform, hard eyes. He summons McKenna to his office. Comrade McKenna, the war in Europe is over. Our American allies are negotiating terms for repatriation of their citizens currently in Soviet custody. This includes you. McKenna's heart jumps. Goes home. Returned to America. After 6 years. However, the general continues, there are complications. Your status is unusual. You fought for the Red Army. You have knowledge of Soviet training methods and tactics. The NKVD considers you a security risk. Of course they do. McKenna knew this was coming. Knew it since the day he signed Brezhnev's document. What are my options? You may request repatriation. Your case will be reviewed. It may take months, years. It may be denied. Or you may remain in the Soviet Union voluntarily. Continue your work, accept Soviet citizenship. Certain benefits would be available. A pension, better housing, more autonomy. Prison with better wallpaper is still prison, General. Perhaps. But it is the only prison where you are useful. In America, you would be investigated, questioned, possibly prosecuted. Here, you are valued, respected. You have purpose. Purpose. That word again. The thing McKenna came to Russia looking for. The thing he found in the crew of KV-2012. The thing that has kept him alive through 6 years of teaching boys to die efficiently. I will think about it, McKenna says. Think quickly. The offer expires in 1 week. McKenna walks the grounds of the training facility, watches new crews practice formations. Young men, 18 and 19, who know war only as stories their fathers told, who think tanks are machines for parades, not coffins on tracks, who have no idea what it costs to do what they are learning. He thinks about America, about New York, about going home to nothing. Sarah is dead. David is dead. His friends, if he ever had any, have moved on. He would be a stranger in his own country, a suspect, a man who needs explaining. He thinks about Volkov, about the promise they made to tell the story, about being a witness when everyone else is ready to forget. He thinks about Klaus von Steiner's notebook, about Misha's hero worship, about Bear's final words, about Anton's note, about all the ghosts who would go unremembered if McKenna left now. He makes his choice. In July 1945, James McKenna accepts Soviet citizenship, becomes Comrade McKenna officially, signs papers that make him property of a system he does not believe in but cannot abandon. The general keeps his promises. Better housing, a small apartment in Kazan with a real bed and a kitchen, a pension that allows him to eat regularly, permission to write as long as his writings are reviewed and approved. McKenna starts writing, not propaganda, not official histories, just memories. He writes about Raseiniai, about the crew of KV-2012. He writes about von Steiner and the human cost of enemies becoming friends too late. He writes for hours every day, filling notebooks with stories that will probably never be published but need to be told anyway. In September 1945, a miracle happens. A letter arrives from Moscow, from a veterans hospital, from Dmitri. Captain McKenna, I am alive. I teach now. Literature to wounded soldiers. We read Pushkin and Tolstoy, and we pretend that poetry can heal what war broke. I heard you are still in Russia. If you can visit, please do. I have stories to tell. About Volkov, about all of us. McKenna takes the first train to Moscow. The city is scarred from war, but rebuilding. He finds the hospital, finds Dmitri in a wheelchair, legless but somehow more whole than McKenna expected. They embrace. These two survivors of Raseiniai. These two men who should be dead but stubbornly refuse. You look terrible, Dmitri says with a smile. Too thin, too sad. Moscow has not been kind to you. Kazan has not been kind to me, but I am alive. That is more than most can say. Yes, more than most. Dmitri wheels himself to a window. The autumn sun makes his face almost peaceful. Volkov is alive, Jim. He survived the war. He is a colonel now, commands a training division in Ukraine. He asked about you, wanted your address. I told him I would find you. The relief hits McKenna like a wave. Volkov alive. After 3 years of silence, 3 years of assuming the worst, Nikolai Volkov survived. One more brother still breathing. Can I write to him? Better. He is visiting Moscow next month, military conference. He wants to see you. The reunion happens in October, in a quiet restaurant where veterans gather to drink and remember. Volkov enters in full uniform, colonel's insignia, metal ribbons covering half his chest. He has aged like all of them, gray at the temples, lines on his face, but his eyes are still sharp. They do not speak at first. Just embrace. Hold each other like men who have stared into the abyss and found each other on the other side. Jim, Volkov says finally, you stayed. You crazy American, you actually stayed. I had nowhere else to go, and someone needed to remember. They sit, order vodka, talk for hours. Volkov tells war stories, the advance through Poland, the siege of Budapest, Berlin in April '45. He speaks of victory, but his voice carries the weight of cost. Too many dead, too many ghosts. I heard about Anton, Volkov says quietly, and von Steiner. I am sorry, brother. We are all sorry. Sorry is the universal language of survivors. What will you do now? The war is over. You could still go home. McKenna shakes his head. Home is a place I do not recognize anymore. Maybe home is just wherever your brothers are. Right now, that is here. Volkov reaches across the table, grips McKenna's shoulder. Then stay. Teach with me. We will build the best tank corps in the world. Train them to survive, not just fight. Save lives instead of spending them. That is our mission now, our redemption. And so McKenna stays, not because he has to, because he chooses to, because purpose matters more than geography, because the crew of KV-2012, living and dead, deserves someone to remember them, someone to tell their story when everyone else is ready to move on. The years pass, 1946, 1947. The Cold War begins. The Iron Curtain falls. McKenna becomes a permanent fixture at the Kazan training facility. The American who never went home. The veteran who chose exile over return. He writes, fills dozens of notebooks with memories and stories. In 1950, he finishes his manuscript. The Last Stand. The story of Raseiniai, of Misha and Bear and Anton and Volkov, of Friedrich von Steiner and Klaus, of fathers and sons and the terrible things war does to both. The Soviet censors will not publish it. Too honest, too critical, too human. But Dmitri reads it, Volkov reads it. They tell McKenna it is important, that someday when the world is ready, it will matter. In 1953, Stalin dies. The Soviet Union begins a slow thaw. Khrushchev denounces the old regime's excesses. Prisoners are released from gulags. The terror eases slightly. That same year, Volkov is promoted to general. He uses his influence to do something remarkable. He arranges for McKenna to visit America, an official cultural exchange, a Soviet trainer teaching American tank crews about Soviet tactics. It is propaganda, yes, but it is also a gift. McKenna returns to America in December 1953, 14 years after he left. He is 52 years old, gray, tired, a stranger in his own country. He visits David's grave at the USS Arizona Memorial in Hawaii, stands in silence at the white marble wall where his son's name is carved among the other dead. He has no words, no prayers, just grief that has aged like wine into something quieter, but no less potent. He visits Sarah's grave in New York. The headstone is simple. Sarah McKenna, beloved mother, taken too soon. McKenna places flowers, apologizes to Cold Stone for failing to be the husband she deserved. He gives a series of lectures at Fort Knox. American tank commanders listen politely to the Soviet methods. Some appreciate the tactics. Most just see him as a curiosity. The American who went native, who chose the wrong side of the Iron Curtain. After 6 weeks, he returns to the Soviet Union, to Kazan, to the life he built from the ruins of the one he destroyed. "Why did you come back?" Dmitri asks when they meet again. "Because America is not home anymore. Maybe it never was. Maybe home is just where people remember who you used to be and still accept who you became." The years continue. 1955, 1960, the space race, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world teetering on the edge of annihilation while old soldiers teach young ones how to kill efficiently. In 1968, McKenna is 65 years old, retirement age, even in the Soviet Union. Volkov, now a general in semi-retirement, suggests they write a book together, a technical manual on tank warfare. Use their combined American and Soviet experience. They write in Volkov's dacha outside Moscow, spend long summer days arguing about tactics and longer nights drinking and remembering. The book is published in 1969, becomes required reading at Soviet military academies. McKenna and Volkov are recognized as the foremost experts on armored warfare in the USSR. But McKenna knows the real book, the one that matters, is still unpublished. The Last Stand, the story of 6 men who held a road for 8 hours and changed nothing and everything. In 1970, something unexpected happens. An American journalist contacts McKenna through official channels. He wants to interview him, write a profile. The American who stayed, the Cold War curiosity. McKenna agrees, meets the journalist, a young man named Robert Wilson, in a Moscow hotel. They talk for hours. McKenna tells selected stories, careful stories, nothing that would endanger Volkov or Dmitri or himself. Nothing too honest. But at the end, Wilson asks the question McKenna has been avoiding for 30 years. "Do you regret it, staying here, giving up America?" McKenna thinks for a long time before answering. "I regret failing my son, failing my wife, failing to be the man they needed. But staying here? No, I found something in this country that I never found in America. Purpose, brothers. A reason to wake up every day and do something that matters. Even though you are not free, freedom is complicated. I am not free to leave, true, but I am free from the man I was. The drunk, the failure, the ghost haunting his own life. Maybe that trade was worth it." Wilson publishes the interview in 1971. It causes a minor scandal in America, accusations of brainwashing, propaganda. But some veterans read it and understand. Some soldiers recognize the truth in McKenna's words about finding purpose in unexpected places. In December 1972, James McKenna dies quietly in his apartment in Kazan. Heart attack. Quick and painless, the doctors say. He is 69 years old. Volkov and Dmitri arrange the funeral. It is small, a few dozen students, veterans he trained, Soviet officials who recognized his contributions. The American embassy sends a representative who stands in the back and says nothing. They bury him in the military cemetery near the training facility. The headstone reads simply, "James McKenna, 1903 to 1972, tanker teacher brother." Volkov gives the eulogy. His voice is steady, but his eyes are not. Jim used to say that courage is not about surviving. It is about standing when everything says to run. He stood at Raseiniai. He stood in the POW camps. He stood here in exile for 33 years. He stood for the men beside him, for Misha and Bear and Anton, for all the boys who became men too soon and died too young. He was not perfect. He knew that, but he tried. And in the end, that is all any of us can do. Try to be worthy of the brothers who stand beside us. After the funeral, Volkov and Dmitri returned to Volkov's apartment. They opened McKenna's trunk, the one he brought to Russia in 1939. Inside are notebooks, dozens of them. McKenna's writings, the stories he spent 30 years recording. And at the bottom, wrapped in cloth, are the letters. From David, from Sarah, from von Steiner, the ghost that McKenna carried across continents and decades. What do we do with these? Dmitri asks. Volkov holds up the last stand manuscript, the story of Raseiniai, complete, powerful, true. We publish it. Somehow, someday, we make sure this story is told. Because Jim was right. Someone has to be a witness. Someone has to remember that we were all just men, not heroes, not villains, just men trying to do our duty in a world that asks too much. It takes 15 years. Perestroika, glasnost, the slow opening of Soviet society. In 1987, a small press in Moscow publishes The Last Stand by James McKenna and Nikolai Volkov. It is not a bestseller, does not win prizes. But veterans read it, soldiers understand it, and slowly, quietly, the story of KV-2012 spreads. Volkov, now in his 70s, gives interviews, talks about McKenna, about Raseiniai, about the cost of war and the currency of brotherhood. He lives long enough to see the Soviet Union fall, lives long enough to see Russia become something new, something different. He dies in 1995, 85 years old, surrounded by family and students, and the memories of brothers who preceded him into whatever comes next. Dmitri outlives them all, lives to see the 21st century. In 2001, at the age of 80, he gives his final interview to a documentary filmmaker making a film about Raseiniai. What do you want people to know about Captain McKenna? The filmmaker asks. Dmitri thinks for a long time. His legs are gone, his friends are gone, but his words remain sharp. I want them to know that he was broken when he came to us. A drunk, a failure, a man running from ghosts. But he became the father I never had, the hero Misha believed in, the teacher who saved lives by making us better than we thought we could be. He was not a saint, but he was good. And in war, good is rare enough to be holy. Dmitri dies in 2003. They bury him next to McKenna and Volkov in Kazan. Three brothers reunited in earth, if not in heaven. The KV-2012 wreckage, recovered after the war, is eventually donated to a museum in Moscow. A plaque beside it tells the story. June 22, 1941, 8 hours, 43 tanks destroyed, 6 men holding a road. 5 surviving, then 4, then 3. Every year on June 22nd, a few elderly veterans gather at the tank, place flowers, say prayers, remember when they were young and terrified, and certain that courage meant not running when everything said to run. In 2015, an American veteran named David James Wilson visits the museum. He is 70 years old. His grandfather was Robert Wilson, the journalist who interviewed McKenna. His middle name, James, is in honor of a man he never met but heard stories about his whole life. He stands before KV-2012 for a long time, touches the scarred armor, reads the plaque, thinks about his own service in Iraq, about brotherhood forged in combat, about the things soldiers understand that civilians never will. A Russian veteran, also elderly, also remembering, approaches. "You are American?" the Russian asked in accented English. "Yes." "You come to see the famous tank?" "I come to honor the man who fought in it, James McKenna. He was not Russian. He was American. But he stood here anyway, for his brothers." The Russian nods slowly. "We are all brothers when the shooting starts. Only after, when politicians speak, do we become enemies again." They stand together in silence. Two old soldiers from different countries, different wars, different generations. United only by the understanding that some things, courage and sacrifice, and love for the men beside you, transcend flags and decades and all the artificial borders that divide humanity. "Do you think he regretted it?" David Wilson asks. "Giving up everything to stay?" The Russian considers this. "I think he found what he was looking for. Not what he expected, not what he planned, but what he needed. Is that not enough?" "Maybe. I hope so." They part ways. The museum closes, the lights dim, and KV-2012 sits in darkness, monument and warning, and testament to the simple truth that James McKenna spent 33 years trying to teach. That courage is not about never being afraid. It is about standing when everything tells you to run, for people who need you, even when those people are not your blood, even when the world does not understand. even when the cost is everything you thought you wanted. Because in the end, we are not measured by the things we achieve or the countries we serve or the years we survive. We are measured by whether we stood when our brothers needed us. And James McKenna stood. For 8 hours at Raseiniai, for 33 years in exile, for a lifetime in memory. He stood. That is enough. That is everything. The story ends.